Hello everyone, welcome. My name is Razzmel, and here I am bringing you another PvP guide for Guild Wars 2. So this time I'm doing a little bit different. I'm on the camera with the pictures and the face and the hair and everything is awful. So last time we talked about skill knowledge and, class knowledge and class limits and a little bit, and then metas. I think that was it. Yeah, we talked about those things. Metas, class limits, and class knowledge. Those are the things we talked about last time. Today we're going to be talking about just general conquest and what you should do as a new player when it comes to this kind of stuff. I mean, it's a very big, I guess you can call it big, but it's a lot of things to a lot of little things to know about when it comes to conquest and what one should do when you're fighting and you're going points and how to go, where to go, what to do, when to do it. You know, it's just a lot of little things. A lot of the things we're going to be talking about are in terms, and this is just warning, in terms of a solo queuer, someone who's playing by themselves, going to queue up for ranked or unranked, or even go into hot joins if you so choose to. So that's what it is. It's not about team-based. I'm going to make team-based stuff later on. So the first thing we're going to talk about is playing as a solo queuer in general. What should one even do when you're playing a solo queue? There's a few things you should know before you even go into it. There's just some things you got to understand about the player base and, you know, things that happen because it is solo queue. First things first, you might be, and just the way that the RNG works or whatever system that it has in place for the actual, queuing people together and stuff like that, is you might get some unfair fights. And when I say unfair, I don't mean like, it's 5 NGs or something like that. What I'm talking about is you'll sometimes be a single player amongst 5 random strangers against a team of 5 people who are actually on TS or Skype or Vent or whatever. It doesn't matter, that you might get that sometimes. Another thing you have to be aware of is that in general people are less responsive to everything in solo queue. A lot of people have something up their butt, or they have some sort of entitlement or whatever pride thing. They think that they know everything. Well, and any sort of criticism or feedback or any sort of effort to make them work together tends to go awry and doesn't really work. I've had that happen many times, many times ever since I started this game. And that's not just in PvP, that's in general, but that's something you also experience in solo queue, so be prepared for that. Don't assume that your team will actually act team-like. Most players tend to be like, I can do this, I'm the MVP of the class, or I'm the MVP of I'm the best Ellie, or I'm this, and I can carry a team on my own. It's like, no, it doesn't really happen all the time. It doesn't happen all the time. Even if you are really, really good, and I'm not saying you aren't, if you are really, really good, you can, carry a team, that's great, but it doesn't always happen. It always depends on the majority of the team, if they know what they're doing, if they have any sort of awareness of what's ever going on. So that's all something to take into consideration. And, I'm not saying that everyone is like that. You will find people that do make an effort to actually play as a team and coordinate and try to talk. Typing and stuff like that tends to be very distractive, but people do make an effort sometimes, and I give kudos to those people. So basically, when it comes down to it, just focus on your role as what you're playing, and to do your best as you can to understand what's going on. You have to be kind of reactive, especially in solo queue, because you don't know what your teammates are thinking. You just kind of have to see what they're doing and then react to it. That's what I said, react to whatever they're doing. I can repeat myself a million times. I can repeat myself a million times. I'm gonna repeat myself a million times just to get the emphasis out. But besides all the solo queue stuff, and it's nothing to stress over, those are some things that you should be aware of and be just kind of keeping your eye on. But the main thing about this video is going to be about rotations. And when I'm talking about rotations, I'm not talking about, rotating in a swivel chair or rotating in whatever, or if, rotating your character around. I'm not saying that you would think that way, but it's a really confusing word that many people don't seem to understand. Rotation, what I mean by rotation, is the flow of players from one point to another. So they're moving from here all the way to here, then to here, and then to here, and then to here. Just moving to players. And the most important thing to learn about rotation is that in order to rotate properly, one must know whether their teammates are all they must know where their teammates are all at all times. You must know where everyone is. and then try to kind of think about what's going on here. What's happened over here? What should I do about that? If there's something over here, what should I do about that? You know, if I have one of my teammates at far point, and we'll talk about far point capping later. If someone at far point, what should I do? Where should I go? You have to kind of be aware of those things. Situational awareness is #1 key thing to playing any video game. Any video game. So when you're assessing the situation, you're trying to figure out, okay, so they're here, I have like this many people here, I have this many people here. You kind of have to make sure that you know how many people are where, that there are enough people to do something to resist counter rotation. You know, if you move into midpoint, you win the team fight, and then 3 people go to far point, and you're left there by yourself. The other team is gonna see that, and if they're any good, they're gonna go right to that midpoint because they know they can take that really easy, really quickly, or they'll go right to home point and come through there. So it's just you gotta be you know, looking at the situational entirely and kind of say, maybe if you're really you know what's going on, you're like, hey guys, can we not go this way, and kind of protect the points we have and things like that. Sometimes you have to speak up about some things, and you know, you might get some flack for it or whatever. They might think, oh, we know what we're doing, we can do this. No, you're an idiot, you don't know what you're talking about. And in general, when stuff like, you know, when you know you're in a bad situation, always think, okay, let's wait, and it's better to don't go on to a point that you know your teammates are going to die on. It's going to get capped, there's going to be 3 people there waiting for you. Don't go there. Don't go rushing in by yourself, because it's not going to help. Then you're going to have respawn timers, and that's not fun, because then everything gets capped. Everyone's dying everywhere, and then you get people kind of coming out as they respawn, and that's not a good thing. You want everyone, the best thing to do at that situation is just to wait, regroup, and then push back as a force. It's the best thing to do. That's worked for me many times, and I have people who will attest to that. Just wait, regroup, and push. Wait, regroup, push. 3 words you have to recite to yourself when that happens. Wait, regroup, push. Wait, regroup, push. Wait, regroup, push. Wait, regroup, push. So those are some simple tips about rotation. The whole thing about rotation is that it's hard to explain in a very detailed entirety of it. It's kind of something you can just learn as you go along, and it's hard for me to explain everything. There's a lot of little things. It's all situational. It's very situational, so it's about what's happening. You can learn certain situations. Some things are the same, and sometimes something completely different happens. You're like, what the heck do I do? Well, you just gonna have to kind of compare the different times that you've been in similar situations, and then kind of say, okay, well, we can do this and see if that works. And if it doesn't, then you know, hey, that doesn't work like that. Maybe next time we'll try something different. So the next thing I want to talk about is I think is the bane of all solo queuers, because I experience this I think about 90% of my games I experience this. I experience this happen to me, and I've played with my guild leader Loki from Mega, and we experienced this many times, and it has been very sad many times. It is what I call the far cap. Now, what do I mean by the far cap? What I mean by the far cap is when, and this mainly describes a solo queue situation, when 1 or 2 people from your team decide to go to far point by themselves without telling anyone else, and then leaving 2 people to go to mid and 1 person to go home. Or no one going home. Sometimes people decide not to go home at all, which confuses me entirely. And then you're in a situation where, well, there's 4 people in the mid we have to fight. There's 3 of us, or 2, because there is usually 1 person going home. That person has to fight. And then there's 2 people going over there to cap that far point. Well, in that situation, usually, and most often, and more often than not, you lose that mid fight and it's gone. They've capped that point, and they put some sort of shout bow or some sort of NG on it or something like that, and they've gone to go help the guy at home to take that, and so now you're 2 capped, and then they go just push, and often, more often than not, if that's not the situation, those guys die first, and then you've got 2 people coming in from there to your midpoint where there's 3 of you, and now there's 5 or 4 of them. So it's not always the best situation when it comes to far point capping. If you're one of those people, you can go frick yourself. Keep this family friendly as much as possible. Frick yourself. Frick yourself. Frick yourself. So in this situation where there are 2 people going off, 1 or 2 people, even 1 person can screw everything up, or 2 people is really like you're done for. You know that's just over. One thing you can do, and these aren't true and tried ways of solving this problem, but in this situation, there are a couple things you can do. The first thing you can do is just to follow them. To be honest, it's just the best choice. Actually, it is the best choice out of the two options, because at least you're going with them to +1 that fight. I mean, +1, you're +1ing, you're plus those, you have 2, you have 3, +1, +1, you have 3, or 3, you know, whatever. +1, and that allows you to pretty much win the fight, because there's usually only one person there waiting, and even if they send more, that means they have to overcommit to that point, so you might have a better chance to win the mid fight. So that's usually the best option. So you're either drawing more to that point, or you've taken it entirely, and then you can move in from that point. You got 3 people coming into the mid fight, and that can be fine. You know, you have all your members right in midpoint, because hopefully home has been capped already. So obviously that's a perfect situation right there. That doesn't always happen, but you know, that's again the best possible choice you could make. The other one is kind of you have to really decide whether you want to do it or not. And it's usually what most people do, because it's easiest. You can try to go and win the mid fight even if you're outnumbered, but I do warn you, don't commit to it too much. The worst thing you could do is go into it and die. If you're, you know, be smart, and if your other teammates want to do that, go ahead. The best thing to do in that situation is just to try to win it, hold it out as long as possible. But if it's going bad or going sour at all, just leave, get out of there as fast as you can. Act like a tree and leave. The whole point of not dying is just that you don't have a respawn timer. Then again, you get into that situation where people are coming out as they respawn one by one and just going in the line just to die. So that's just doesn't work. It doesn't work. Don't do that. It doesn't help the team at all. Again, at that point, regrouping is the best option after that. If all of your teammates decide, okay, we're not winning this, and you can try to type it out to them or something like that, like, guys, we're not winning this fight, we should get out of here and wait for more of our teammates to come in to be able to fight this properly. And even in that point, I mean, it's better to have fought an even fight and lost than to have tried to fight an uneven fight and lost and all died and then had to wait for respawn timers, because then they can move around the map more freely and take everything. So I'm sorry if I'm going too fast in this video. I want to try to shorten them up, because they seem to have come to like 20 minutes, and I'm trying to shorten them down to like maybe 10, 15, 14 minutes or something like that. Currently I'm at 15 minutes, so I don't know if that's going to be possible right now, but oh well, we'll see. You know, the last thing I want to talk about is probably something that a lot of solo queue players dread. They dread this, and I dreaded it when I was first starting out being serious about PvP, and it was called the 1v1 situation. I'm using these quotes a lot. Quotes. The 1v1 situation. I won't stop doing that. So if you're in a situation where you're capping a point, making a pie, capping a point, and you're either capping the point, or you're taking back, or you just cap the point. And at that point, someone on the enemy team is coming towards you, and you have to end up fighting them. Everyone freaks out. The first time, everyone's like, oh my god, what do I do? Now, if you're a veteran player, you're like, okay, I can handle it. That's a different story. But if you're a new player, and you're only what do I do? And you just kind of mash buttons as fast as possible. Just mashing buttons all over the place, and just hoping that does something to them. Usually it doesn't, because most of the time those people are very confident that they've gone in there because they know they can win the fight. Always assume that the person you're fighting thinks they can win. Just always assume that. That way, if you do lose accidentally, you don't feel as bad. If you do, and if you win, you feel real good. That's what I do. I'm not going to give 1v1 advice right now, because that's an entirely different video, and it doesn't really pertain much to the team aspect, which is the biggest part of Conquest anyways. I can give you a few tips on what decisions you can make depending on the circumstance. So, if it isn't absolutely imperative, if the match does not rely on you keeping this point either neutral or capped, don't worry about it. Don't worry about the point at all. Get off that point. You're not going to sit there and take 100 blades to the face because you're like, oh no, I've got to keep this point safe because it has to stay in my color because I love the color red. No, you don't do that. You don't do that. That will just end in failure, and you'll be sad because you've died and now the point is capped. Anyway, obviously you want to do your best to keep the point your color, but it's still just don't worry about it if it happens. If it's become decapped or if it's turning to their color, the object of it is to last as long as possible. Always, again, that goes into the whole situational awareness thing, where you have to pay attention to the map, what's happening. If you're at home point and it's being camped and you're standing off of it, if you're standing off of it and you see that far point is being capped by your team and you have midpoint, don't worry about home. If you're really that worried about losing that fight, don't worry about it, because you can always get your teammates to come and help you. Remember, you have teammates, they can help you. And also staying off the point allows you to use your space around you to your advantage. And, you know, you're not going to sit there on the point and let Necromancer, Power Necro, put wells down, or you're not going to sit there and let NG throw nades or put bombs on the ground, you know. A point is a small circle, and a lot of AoE effects you can just throw them randomly in there and hit something. They'll hit something on the point. And the number one, actually this applies to everything in the match and anything in PvP or PvE. The number one thing I do give you, and this is to make a situation where you have the advantage over everyone. Just make the situation to your advantage. Turn it to your advantage. Make it so that you have the best possible outcome as possible, or you have the best possible outcome that could be possible, and that will allow you to see what could, you know. It takes time to see the foresight. I'm still not there. I've messed up a bunch, if you've probably seen some of the videos. So, but I thank you so much for watching. Hope that these videos do help new players and people who are returning to the game to kind of get back into PvP or get into PvP and kind of and ease them into it. Again, it's not an easy thing because the community is hard. It's a hard not life for us PvPers, because we're usually lone wolves and things like that, and if we don't have friends to help us through things, we have to figure things out on our own. So again, please do give feedback in the comments, talk about it, message me in game if you want to ask questions or want to talk about some things. And yeah, I'm certainly open to any criticism about my videos and things that I'm giving advice on. If I'm missing anything, just tell me. I'll be like, wow, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. I'll make a note of that in the next video. So keep your critiques constructive. Anyway, I'm gonna end the video here, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you want to see more of these videos. Like the video and help it get noticed by more people, so we can get some more people in on PvP and get talking about things. I want to kind of get more conversation going in the comments and stuff like that. And as always, I will see you guys next time.